Imagine a journey meant to be one of glory, a symbol of an empire's unshakable power. 42 warships, thousands of sailors, and the immense pride of Russia, all setting sail toward what they believed was their destiny. They were the Baltic Fleet, sent to secure victory in a war raging half a world away. But this was not a story of triumph. This was a prelude to a disaster of epic proportions, a tragedy so profound it would shock the entire world. The sea, it turned out, had its own plans. What started with grand parades and hopeful cheers quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Storms of unimaginable fury, a gnawing, constant fear, and the ever-present spectre of death became their only companions on a voyage across 3 oceans. By the time this ghost fleet finally confronted its enemy, they were already a broken, exhausted force, shadows of the proud men who had set out. This isn't just a dry chapter in a history book, it's a deeply human story of ambition, failure, and suffering, a tale written in salt water and blood. Join us as we uncover the harrowing saga of the Russian Baltic Fleet's disastrous journey to Tsushima. It all began with an idea born from Imperial pride, a desperate gamble to turn the tide of the Russo-Japanese War. Russia, a colossal land power, found itself humiliated by the smaller, more agile Japanese navy in the Far East. The Tsar and his advisors decided on a grand, audacious plan: dispatch their most powerful naval force, the Baltic Fleet, on an unprecedented 18,000-mile journey from their home ports to the shores of Japan. This was meant to be Russia's ultimate flex, a demonstration of its industrial might and naval prowess that would crush the upstart Japanese and restore the empire's honor. But this grand vision was deeply flawed from the very beginning. The plan was not just ambitious, it was reckless. It was a classic case of pride before the fall. The ships, many of them brand new and untested, were ill-prepared for such a grueling voyage. The crews were a mix of seasoned veterans and hastily conscripted peasants who had never seen the ocean before. They were sending a fleet designed for the calm, enclosed waters of the Baltic Sea into the most treacherous oceans on the planet. It was a logistical nightmare and a strategic catastrophe waiting to happen, one of the costliest and most misguided decisions in the annals of naval history. The journey itself became a slow, agonizing descent into hell. For 7 long months, these thousands of sailors were trapped in steel coffins, battling not an enemy, but the elements and their own growing despair. They navigated through violent Atlantic storms that tossed their top-heavy battleships like toys. They baked in the oppressive heat of the tropics, where coal dust mixed with sweat, creating a suffocating black grime that covered everything and everyone. Food rotted in the heat, fresh water became a precious, rationed commodity, and diseases like dysentery spread through the cramped, unsanitary quarters. This was an ocean of suffering. Men worked in engine rooms where temperatures soared, pushing their bodies to the brink of collapse. The monotony was broken only by grueling, back-breaking work, like the constant, filthy task of coaling the ships at sea, a process that left the men exhausted and the ships coated in a thick layer of black dust. Morale, already fragile, began to crumble under the immense physical and psychological strain. They were 18,000 miles from home, with no end in sight, sailing toward a battle they were beginning to doubt they could even reach, let alone win. Compounding the physical misery was a creeping, all-consuming paranoia. The voyage began under a cloud of fear. Rumors swirled that Japanese torpedo boats were hiding in the North Sea, waiting to ambush them. This anxiety reached a fever pitch in what became known as the Dogger Bank incident. In the foggy darkness off the coast of England, the jittery Russian gunners mistook a fleet of British fishing trawlers for enemy warships. Panic erupted. The fleet opened fire, sinking one of the trawlers and causing an international incident that nearly brought Russia and Great Britain to war. The incident was a disaster. Not only did it damage Russia's international standing, but it shattered the fleet's internal cohesion. The men lost faith in their officers' judgment. The officers, led by the beleaguered Admiral Rozhestvensky, grew increasingly stressed and erratic. Ships fired on their own allies in the confusion. This atmosphere of fear and mistrust was toxic. The sailors, already battling storms and sickness, were now fighting a war within their own minds. Long before they ever saw a Japanese flag, the psychological battle was already lost. Morale didn't just sink, it plummeted into an abyss from which it would never recover. After more than half a year of this torturous odyssey, the exhausted, battered and demoralized Baltic Fleet finally entered the Strait of Tsushima, the narrow channel separating Korea and Japan. This was the final leg of their journey, the gateway to their destination at Vladivostok. They knew the Japanese fleet, commanded by the brilliant Admiral Togo Heihachiro, would be waiting. But even in their wildest nightmares, they could not have imagined the totality of the annihilation that awaited them. Hope, what little remained, was about to meet its violent end. On May 27, 1905, the two fleets met. The contrast could not have been starker. The Japanese ships were faster, their crews were battle-hardened, rested, and fighting in their home waters. Their gunnery was terrifyingly accurate. The Russians, on the other hand, were sailing slow, overburdened vessels with fouled hulls that reduced their speed. Their crews were exhausted, and their aim was poor. Admiral Togo executed a masterful maneuver, the famous crossing the T, which allowed his entire battle line to fire upon the lead Russian ships, while the Russians could only reply with their forward guns. The result was a slaughter. Within hours, the sea had swallowed Russia's might. Shells rained down on the Russian battleships, turning them into floating infernos. One by one, the pride of the Russian navy capsized, exploded, or surrendered. The battle raged through the night and into the next day, but it was a battle in name only. It was a methodical destruction. Of the 42 Russian ships that entered the strait, only a handful escaped. Thousands of sailors went down with their ships, their long journey of suffering ending in a watery grave. The day of doom had arrived, and it was more terrible than anyone could have foreseen. The Battle of Tsushima was more than just a military defeat. It was a national humiliation that sent shockwaves through Russia and across the globe. It exposed the deep-seated corruption and incompetence at the heart of the Tsarist regime and became a major catalyst for the Russian Revolution of 1905. The loss of the fleet was the final nail in the coffin for Russia's war effort, forcing them to sue for a humiliating peace. For Japan, it was a stunning victory that announced its arrival as a major world power. But beyond the geopolitics, the story of the Baltic Fleet is a timeless and tragic human lesson. It's a story of how arrogance and poor leadership can lead ordinary men into an unimaginable catastrophe. It is a testament to the endurance of the human spirit, even in the face of insurmountable odds, and a grim reminder of the horrific cost of war. The fleet died, its iron hulls rusting at the bottom of the ocean, but its story lives on, a warning carved deep into the waves of history. It teaches us about the folly of pride, the corrosive nature of fear, and the profound tragedy that unfolds when leaders gamble with the lives of their people. It's a lesson that even over a century later, time should never forget. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into one of history's most compelling naval tragedies. If you found this story as fascinating and moving as we did, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more historical journeys. Let us know in the comments what you think was the biggest factor in the fleet's failure. We love hearing from you. Until next time, stay curious.